Hello, I'm Grindle and welcome to this week's build request. Because it is in fact Star Wars month, and we are doing almost entirely Star Wars themed videos throughout the month of May, it will probably come as no surprise that just as most of our videos are Star Wars, so too are our build requests. Although fair warning that we can only do so many videos, and due to the popularity of Star Wars resulting in quite a few different requests, we will not be able to do every single Star Wars request this month. That's not to say we'll never get to your Star Wars requests, just not within the month of May. However, that all said, one request we did manage to get to was Kevin Bangs, who has requested we have an attempt at building Anakin Skywalker and Sebulba's Podracers from Star Wars Episode 1. So, first up, Anakin Skywalker's Podracer. Now, unfortunately, in a turn of events that scientists are all calling rather disappointing, it seems that the build process for much of Anakin Skywalker's pod was unfortunately not recorded. While it was almost certainly my fault, I'm going to blame technology. So rather than scrutinizing technological failures too closely and making them feel bad about themselves, let's move straight along. As you can tell from the footage that did survive of me testing this initial build, the original plan was to have the hovering of the Podracer handled by the balloons. Now, I know what you're all thinking, but Grim, why would you even try that? You yourself have done a tutorial on hovercrafts in which you used a small propeller. What is the point of abandoning a method that's proved itself tried and true? Well, quite simply because experimentation is the name of the game, and I was hoping that if I moved away from propellers to hover, I would be able to concentrate more on speed. This, in fact, did actually work, but unfortunately, due to the narrowness of the Podracer's design, there was no real good place to hide balloons in, and so I ended up needing to hide them on angles and upside down, which unfortunately meant at the slightest turn, your entire Podracer would flip upside down. Not exactly a desired thing to happen if you're trying to win the Boon to Eve race. So, now let's set aside Anakin Skywalker's pod for a moment and have a look at Sebulba's, but we will go back to Anakin's in a bit. I sort of built both pod races at the same time, so their designs sort of integrate into each other. As you can see, Sebulba's pod 2 to begin with also was relying on a balloon to hover, but that's not really important because it all changes later on. What I'm actually looking at in this stage of Sebulba's pod's building is the way that the engines are connected to the actual driver pod. You see, both in Star Wars The Phantom Menace, and even in the Episode 1 Podracer Nintendo 64 game, the Podracers in Star Wars have a very particular way of moving. I am, of course, alluding to the fact that they are very much front-driven. They are essentially just George Lucas's sci-fi answer to chariots, and the giant engines on the front pull the entire contraption, with the pod in which you sit at the back sort of just dragging behind and drifting. And so, in an attempt to replicate this movement and feel, the way I've connected the three parts is the two engine pods at the front of the vehicle are connected, where the power coupling is in the movie, with a couple of super poles. However, connecting these two engine pods to the pod in which your driver's seat sits is done in a slightly different way. On each pod is a tow bar, and on either side of the driver's pod are two tow bars. And then branching between these four tow bars on each respective side is a row of super poles with a tow bar on either end. So essentially, each of these Podracer builds require 8 tow bars with 4 on either side. And then the final requirement to make your Podracers move like they do in the movie is to simply have the engine pods faster than the actual driver's seat pod in order so the driver's seat pod ends up being dragged behind. In my two Podracers final builds, I actually did this to such a degree that the actual driver's seat pod had itself actually no speed, and its entire movement was from being dragged. And then finally, as I alluded to earlier, I did in fact end up changing out the balloons for propellers and going back to my old methods of hovercrafts, because even though they don't work entirely the way I like, at least they're a lot easier to control, considerably easier to conceal without looking completely silly, and at least they don't keep flipping upside down. I then also in the centre of the power couplings ended up adding a gyroscope, simply because due to the fact that they are entirely front driven, it was a little bit difficult to control sometimes, and so therefore the gyroscope actually helps out a fair bit. And so there you have it, Anakin Skywalker and Sebulba's Podracers from Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace. I think Anakin's Podracer ended up looking a lot better than Sebulba's, and it definitely handles a lot better, but I'm still relatively happy with both, even if I'll probably end up going back and revisiting Sebulba's pod to try to make it a little bit better. They're not exactly the toughest of vehicles, and if you bang them into too many things, they'll definitely fall apart. But that too happens in the movie and also the Podracer game, so I suppose I just made it a little bit too accurately. And it's kind of cool that when they do break, they actually fall apart in a similar way to the way they do in the Phantom Menace. They are a lot of fun to pilot, but they're definitely not practical, and I would be very, very impressed if anyone was able to finish the race burning rubber with one of these Podracers. I myself wasn't able to as I kept losing my engines. So with all of that said and done, as always, thanks for watching, and until next time, I have been and still am Grim Grindle. If you want either of these two vehicles yourself, when I finish talking in a moment, as always, there'll be the layer by layer so you can replicate it into your own save. And if you want more Star Wars stuff, stick around, and if you're not already, subscribe to channel Grim and Grin, because we're doing Star Wars stuff for pretty much the entirety of May.
Gamgo.